Oblivion, a great game that I personally hold in higher esteem than just about all the other Elder Scroll games. We are hit right off the bat with the death of the last emperor of the Uriel Septim bloodline. The very empire that we have now grown accustomed to has now fallen into utter darkness as the empire, for the first time ever, lacks an emperor to rule it. Now this begs the question, why? Why did so many people hate Uriel Septim? To assassinate not just the emperor, but every single child he had and his wife speaks volumes of how much people despised Uriel. To make matters worse, the assassins themselves were numbered in the hundreds. Each member of the assassin ranged from the lowliest peasant to the highest ranked official, as they poured all their resources into discovering secret passageways, travel routes, all these informations and details that only the higher-ups would know about, and all this was achieved to secure the Emperor's death. This just screams hatred, and it shows that the people carrying out this assassination is not being done for the mere pleasure of it. This was an emotional affront to Uriel Septim, and a great voice of disdain that many had held for Uriel Septim. So now back to the question. Why would you hate Uriel Septim? To start with, let's look at his beginnings. As a 20-something-year-old man, young, handsome, strapping, and now the new Emperor of Tamriel, the throne he inherited was a realm that had a lot of independence among its subjects. Here we see that the lowliest of warlords would be able to easily challenge imperial rule. To battle this, Uriel Septim began the campaign to strengthen the empire by conquering the periphery, a short period where legions were deployed to conquer outlying border territories and enforcing along those borders of the empire strict imperial customs. Such strictness usually came at the postings of brand new bolden laws like no more necklaces that have humanoid materials in them, or laws like no more practicing witchcraft. These are things that affected the cultures of many people. This did not sit well with many, but as long as the emperor was focused on the far reaches of the province, none really intervened, but they did voice great displeasure at it. So far, the only allies the emperor had made during this time frame was the Hlaalu House of Morrowind, but that's not really saying much because Hlaalu always takes sides with whoever is strongest. And then the second would be the local imperial warlords, who did agree that much of the empire tolerated far too long these wayward beliefs of these outlying territories. Now, by outlying provinces and such, I'm talking like, we're not talking about Somerset Isles, Morrowind, Hammerfell. No. We're talking the outskirt villages that live in these areas. We're talking the areas like a little island that's slightly off the coast of Skyrim. This is where these conquests were mostly being done. And as I said, he was posting a lot of rules and policy making that was very, very bold. Like, you can't wear certain things in court. You can't do certain things as a warlord of a region. These were a lot of rules and a lot of interesting things that would force people to start to recognize imperial culture. Now, all the while, the imperial battle mage Jaeger Tharn would sweep away the emperor in secret and imprison him for 10 years in Oblivion, the very realm of Mehrunes Dagon. This was to torture him for centuries, but also the realm of Oblivion time travels much, much slower. So this way it would keep him alive for a very, very long time. So while imprisoned, Jaeger Tharn disguised himself as Uriel Septim and began profiting from this cozy position, allowing the peripheral provinces to rebel and collapse into anarchy as orcs, goblins, trolls, even local bandits started taking over cities and castles that many of the imperial nobility once held. This is one of the cool things, is that if you play Elder Scrolls Arena, I wouldn't recommend it, it's a very buggy game, but if you do play it, That's pretty much what everyone's talking about, is why the Empire isn't doing certain things. Why is the Legion not helping us? Why is it that an entire noble lineage that's been loyal to the Empire for over 200 years, their castle got sieged and every single one of them got fucking murdered? And yet the Empire doesn't care. They don't even give a shit. So this led to a collapse of society and the Dark Age for the Empire, as this had lasted well over 10 years. Many of the provinces began to hate the Empire, to even consider breaking away, as they are now forced to pretty much defend themselves from the waves of monsters that seem to be pouring in uncontrollably. A fact that the Imperial Legions, as I said, are kind of responsible for. They're supposed to aid these provinces in wiping out these threats. They're supposed to be watching the border, not letting things come around to and fro with no threat to them. But once Uriel Septim was freed and Yaghartharn was slain, the damage had been done. All the effort Uriel Septim had made in establishing strongholds and bringing the outer provinces into the fold was undone. Now sitting back on his throne was a withered old man, where he saw a realm where every single province was on the verge of usurping the Empire and threatening to break away allegiances. Local Imperial warlords who once supported Uriel Septim now chastised him for letting their realms crumble, for suffering. Outside provinces left to rot and suffer from the rampaging attacks. But now the outside provinces had to look forward to yet more attacks, but this time from legislation, as Uriel Septim already proved when he was younger that he wished to enforce imperial custom on every single province in every single land, stripping away all the province's cultural identities. Despite all the protests and anger many had harbored for Uriel Septim, the fact remained that he was a changed man. Spending an ungodly amount of time in hell had made him a lot more wiser, more cutthroat, and to some people, much more reasonable. While the Empire was reeling from the setback, Uriel Septim started to re-begin once again the reconquest of the outside provinces and bringing them into the imperial fold. Though this conquest was much more different. Instead of brute force and sudden policy changes, the Emperor instead started to use his agents, the Blades, to uncover what these cultures that inhabit these regions believe in, learning their customs, their faiths, along with anything that they find sacred, like prophecies. Prophecies is the largest one, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So during this time period, the kingdoms of High Rock and Hammerfell fall into a massive civil war with over 10 different sides to the conflict. Instead of using imperial troops to subjugate the kingdoms, Uriel sees that his forces are just not ready yet. The Empire was way too weak. The Imperial legions are way too soft to engage in such a conflict. With over 40 castles, it would just been a bloodbath for him to try this. So he did something new. He set aside the sword and picked up the pen. He deployed agents. And by deploying through the kingdoms that are now at war with each other, his agents, he was able to find out whose side is fighting for who. What are they trying to uncover? What are they doing? Here we find that Uriel Septim discovers that the Numidium has been rediscovered. The Numidium was the ancient relic, it's like a war machine, that was used by Tiber Septim, Talos himself, to conquer all of Tamriel. And now that it's been recovered, every single side wants to get control of it. Two sides just want to destroy the damn thing. But the other 8 sides want to use it to overthrow the Empire, to overthrow the other kingdoms, to do some sort of goal and achieve some sort of success. Uriel wants the Numidium back under his control so that way he can beat all these kingdoms without having to sacrifice his legions and bring about an imperial era of peace again. Either way, the warp of the West occurs where all of them got their endings at the same time. All that we do know is that, well, there's pretty much 3 major kingdoms of Wayrest, Sentinel, and Daggerfall. And now there's the new imperial kingdom of Orsinium, a realm for the orcs, and the orcs are now considered people. This is all brought about by Uriel Septim, and it's the acknowledgement of the orcs that the Empire actually kind of got a big win out of this. We see that now with Uriel Septim employing the use of orcs, and using them rather interestingly. The orcs join the Imperial Legion, bolstering its ranks, and this is where we see that many of the provinces lose even more power. Because while the Imperial Legion itself was already formidable, the Imperial Knights, the Blades, all these people were very, very skilled martially, so it would have taken a lot of forces for them to somehow beat the Imperial Legions. Now you got these orcs decked out in super heavy armor, and they're wearing Imperial armor. This gives them way more damage, way more boon, and this allows the Imperial forces to now just say, hey, you know what? We see that there's an orc tribe nearby. Instead of us killing them, how about we tell them this? Kill all the goblins inside your tribe, because we don't recognize them as people. And in return, your entire tribe gets free housing. You get to join the Imperial Legion as soldiers. You get to explore the world. You guys can say you want to live somewhere. We'll say that's your house from here on out. Of course, all the orcs fucking took that deal. That is an amazing deal. This is what we see a lot in Morrowind, which kind of leads us to the next thing that happens in Uriel's life. Morrowind is now under threat. Because you see High Rock, Hammerfell, they now just got completely pacified. They are 100% pro-Empire. They love the Empire. So, thanks to Uriel Septim's machinations of using agents and using prophecies, he now sees something different. He looks to Morrowind. He looks to Vardenfell, the land of the Dark Elves. Utilizing prophecy and research from the Blades, he deduces that there's a prophecy about the Neravine, and he discovers that Nerevar could possibly return according to these local customs. So, he starts doing what he should be doing, which is he starts deploying the Imperial forces all over Morrowind, and he starts colonizing the Dark Elf lands. Now, at this time, the Dark Elves have always been a part of the Empire, but this was sudden. This was new. All of a sudden, Empire forts are getting thrown up everywhere. People are coming in saying, hey, I have deeds to this land, and now we're going to build a farm here of just Bretons and Nords, and you're just going to have to deal with it, okay? And then we see their very own king, who used to be more or less a figurehead. He wasn't actually like a real king of the Dark Elves, King Helseth. He now actually had power, which is new. They weren't really used to that. They were more used to their living gods having real power. The living gods being Sothasil, Amalexia, and Vivek. These were the tribunal. These people are older than the Empire itself. They are literally gods. And now they're looking and they're going, oh wait, our gods are not doing anything. In fact, their gods are allowing the Empire to just come in. And it's like, why are the gods doing this? Usually they rebel, or usually they use their awesome godly powers to overthrow them. This is because Uriel Septim knows. He knows the prophecy. He goes, I get it. Your gods have lost their godliness. They lost their power. They're under threat. They're mortal. They can be killed. So, by deploying his forces everywhere, he is securing this peripheral territory. And now with House Halalu supporting them, House Halalu is getting a bunch of shit done. They're going, hey, Uriel Septim, there's an ebony mine right here. Now, House Redoran is there, but as you can see, according to this deed, ignore the ink. I don't know why the ink is different, but it's actually my mine, and I'm willing to sell you ebony ore if you allow us to take it. And this is where you see that House Halalu is backstabbing a lot of the Dark Elves by subjugating their traditions in exchange for imperial favor, where they start blackmailing, doing forgeries, shit like that, and they start overtaking a lot of the places. This is where the Empire also deploys another agent. Now, we don't know who the main character is of Morrowind. We don't know where they come from. We just know that they're a prisoner, they are brought to Morrowind, and what's really cool about this game is that Morrowind allows you to revoke the Neravine prophecy. You could literally tell Dagath and you could tell everyone else that you're not Nerevar. You're not. You just happen to be some lucky dude who's immune to the plague that Dagath is trying to spread across the world. And we see that Uriel Septim uses this usage of prophecy to get Nerevar on his side. Whether or not Nerevar is real or not, it's up to you to decide. But what matters is that the Empire is giving you all the tools. And they serve as this beautiful backbone where they say, oh, you're the prisoner, huh? Yeah, we'll help you with anything. Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, we'll give you any tool that you desire. Now, some of this is orchestrated by the Empire and the Emperor himself, where we see they're trying to manipulate things, or trying to get things in their favor. And we see that the Dark Elves are not happy about this. They're killing tax collectors. They're full on fighting against Imperial rule in some areas. The Telvanni, which are my favorite faction, the Telvanni alone, like destroy an entire Imperial fortress, saying, nah, you don't have rights to set up in our land. So either way, the Nerevar does the prophecy, and the Emperor benefits from it. He knows that now the Tribunal Temple just lost their gods. There is no more threat. There was another Numidium being built in Morrowind by this evil lord Dagoth-Ur, and it was stopped by this agent. And then who knows what happened to the agent? Many accounts say he just kind of fucked off to another continent somewhere. But the fact remains, the Dark Elves are lost. All they have is their mock king, King Helseth, who originally had no power to begin with, but now he's got power because he's the only one alive. This guy, King Helseth, has good ties with House Halalu. He practices imperial customs. He used to be a prince over in High Rock. And his mother, Queen Berenzia, is also very imperial. So here you have strict imperial rulers with imperial custom House Halalu residing over much of the Dark Elf territory, and their traditions just got destroyed. Their ancestor living gods are dead. Their customs and prophecies just got used against them. And then whoever the hell this guy is that just killed their gods, he's nowhere to be found, so they can't even rally under his banner and call him a god. The Dark Elf tribal and traditional ways have been just obliterated. They have nothing to stand upon. And this is what we see in Skyrim, is that many of the Dark Elves who come to Skyrim as refugees, they don't really practice a lot of their traditional shit anymore. And those in Solstheim as well. And these are those belonging to House Redoran, a more traditionalist Dark Elf house. And even then, they kind of lost a lot of that traditional identity because of this campaign. And this shows the power of Uriel Septim, how he was able to strip away entire provinces' culture by utilizing his understanding of their beliefs and manipulating prophecy for his own gain. This is why people hated Uriel Septim. Originally, he was this boisterous young man who just simply walked into your house and said, hey, you can't drink out of those cups anymore. Yeah, you have to drink out of Imperial tin cups. Yeah, get that pottery shit the fuck up out of here. Smack. Now you have this old man who's utilizing prophecies, hiding away in his secret tower, looking through Elder Scrolls. I am not joking. He has a giant library full of Elder Scrolls, and he devotes many, many resources to the reading of these scrolls so he can uncover prophecies, and he utilizes them effectively. He goes, okay. So I see Argonia, the land of Black Marsh, is going to go through an Argonian revolution where the Argonians will have enough power to overthrow the Empire if this new batch of Generation Hist eggs spawns. Okay. Well, let me just hire a bunch of bandits and have them stomp a bunch of Argonian eggs. Yeah, every bandit will get killed, but hey, at least the prophecy will never come true. And this is what we see. A lot of the other provinces start to kind of ridicule Uriel Septim as a bit of a witchcraft. He's somehow prophesizing things that are coming true. He's somehow seeing things that no one else can see. And many of the Imperials, they just kind of accepted that. They said, oh, well, the Emperor could always see things that we mortals can't see. They divine the stars. But the other provinces see it for kind of what it is. No, your Emperor, he's dabbling in things that he really shouldn't be dabbling in. He's touching prophecies at a very eerie accuracy that's just unnatural. So then this kind of comes up to his assassination in Oblivion. We see Uriel Septim has pretty much secured most of the world. He's subjugated pretty much all the provinces. And with it, now we have all these people who are superstitious against him. We have people who remember him from the earlier days when he pretty much smacked them around and threw them in prison if they decided to rebel against their customs. And now we have all these people who are victims. These people are now victims of Uriel Septim's subjugation of all the provinces. These are people who have at one point or another suffered from an imperial law, suffered from imperial customs, or simply put, just hated the fact that he led from behind the scenes. If you were a Viking Nord from Skyrim, you probably would hate this guy too. You'd probably be like, there's no honor in doing policies and backdoor deals. And you would be willing to rebel against him. So it becomes understandable why Mankar Cameron had so much support. He was promising an era of cultural revolution, an era where people can be worshipped for their identities and that paradise would take over. That's a very tempting offer, because here's a guy who, yeah, he worships Daedra, and a particularly nasty Daedra, one who worships destruction, but on the flip side, at least he's willing to acknowledge your cultural identity. At least he's willing to say, oh yeah, cannibalism, that's totally normal for wood elves. Yeah, go ahead, practice it. Whereas the Imperials, they would say, fuck no, and they would tell you cannibalism's wrong no matter what. And that Daedra worship, while it's not banned, is kind of shunned. And who knows how long that would go on before Uriel Septim would ban that as well, which again is a problem for Dark Elves because they do worship Daedra. That's a problem for Orcs because they worship Malakath. That's a problem for some people because they do acknowledge some good Daedra. Some of them worship Daedra just because they think that they're more potent. And now here you have this overlord of an emperor who's telling you and dictating what you do inside your own household. Yeah, it makes sense why a lot of people want to kill him. It makes sense why a lot of people want to assassinate this guy. And then it makes sense too from a legal perspective. Let's say you're not a religious person, you're not very cultural, but here you are and you're seeing that these imperial forces are just taking over all these provinces. Yeah, these provinces have always been part of the empire, so what's the deal? Why is the empire so strict all of a sudden? Why are they all of a sudden telling everyone else what to do? This is a dictatorship, and you can't be on that side. You're not on the side of a dictator, are you? Telling people in their own homes what they should believe in, even though they already wanted to support you anyways? That's messed up. So, yeah, a lot of the higher-ups who are both imperial and non-imperial were simply saying, hey, this guy's a problem. We got to do something about it. And so, the Mythic Dawn cult had a huge following. And they had great success in killing him. Now, could this have been prevented? Could Uriel Septim have done something different? I don't really think so. I think if he just became a lazy emperor, then yeah, he would have been fine. But eventually, something would have happened at one point or another. Another emperor who may have came on later on in Uriel Septim's bloodline would have probably been just as ambitious and would have probably seen the same issues that the empire's been facing. For you see, the previous emperors had this issue that Uriel Septim set out to fix. The outside provinces, while they have their own cultures, their own customs, they have their own beliefs and doctrines, the fact that they don't subjugate themselves to the imperial way and the imperial customs, it makes the empire as a whole weak, because now they have their own problems, they do their own thing. And if another outside force was to invade again, like the Riemann Empire fell because of the invasion of the Akavir forces. Well, if that Akavir forces come again, and the empire is so fractured where it allows one province to do its own thing, another province to do another, they're just going to get dominated again. So the only way to really bring about this greatness, to bring about a great empire, it would be through the conquest of the outside, the conquest of the peripheral. By taking over the outside provinces and subjugating them, you're strengthening the core. You're making the center of the empire greater. And that's what Uriel Septim sought to do. Unfortunately, it brought about a total end and total destruction of the empire, because with his death, the Oblivion Crisis ensured. And it's through the Oblivion Crisis that we see the rise of the Thalmor, and we see that the Empire loses Somerset. It loses pretty much all of the woodland areas of the Wood Elves. And we see that even elsewhere subjugates itself to the Thalmor instead of siding with the Imperials. And Hammerfell becomes its own independent nation again. So, was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? I'm not really sure. To me, I think that Uriel Septim had the right idea and he was doing the best thing. But because of Jaeger Tharn's intervention, because of the Oblivion Crisis, all of his work became a net negative, where it would have been better had Uriel Septim just sat on his ass and just let the next emperor take over things from there. Because then at least Mankar Cameron wouldn't have such a strong holding. Because then when Jaeger Tharn does his whole ordeal, the provinces would still be strong enough to resist. But, unfortunately, that's not the way things worked out. See you guys next time. Let me know down in the comments down below what you guys think. See you guys next time.